For many children living in inner London, this is school, a legacy of an austere Victorian age. For many Bosnian youngsters, there's an ever-present legacy of a different kind: war. Consider then putting some of each into the shadowy world of a Kent forest in the southeast of England. No school books, pencils or rulers here, just the reality of survival and getting on with one another. And the faces reveal the complex challenges facing these youngsters, children who clearly personify the multicultural mix of today's Britain. This adventurous shift in the educational process is the result of a unique program worked out by the Lambeth Educational Authority in London and the Forestry Commission.
Well done, back to the start, and no one fell over. Maximum points, well done.
But team building can be a difficult process, especially when it comes to finding the best materials for a forest shelter. Few of these children will ever have to survive in a forest, fending for themselves in the provision of food or shelter. But that doesn't mean the exercise of creating their own shelter doesn't have important educational and social dimensions. Close-up contact too with the creatures of the forest, although not always friendly ones. Even the Bosnian youngsters on holiday in Britain and with a limited knowledge of the English language proved the equal of their homegrown peers when it came to woodland skills. It must have seemed a long way from the regime of the classroom, from arithmetic, from spelling, and maybe most importantly of all, from the company of everyday friends. But even for these now qualified woodlanders, the necessary benefits of civilization still have their place. The Japanese government is counting on people power to cool sweltering cities in Japan. Concrete and glass buildings are blamed for heating cities above average in what is commonly referred to as the heat island phenomenon. The local weather report may say temperatures average around 34 degrees Celsius in Tokyo, but that is only part of the story. On hot asphalt roads, temperatures soar 15 degrees more, nearing 50 degrees Celsius, or 122 degrees Fahrenheit. In a government exercise believed to help alleviate this heat, thousands of people turned up on the streets at the trendy shopping center of Ginza in Tokyo. They all splashed water on the hot road in a tradition called Ochimizu, which goes back over 100 years. The government is hoping regular citizens who experience these events will revive the tradition at home and regularly water the road in front of their homes as Japanese used to in the past. So far, it's proven popular with children and young adults. Japan has now set aside August 10 as Uchimizu Day, where they take this exercise nationwide and millions of people participate. They hope this Japanese tradition can help Paris fight the suffocating heat of their summers. In the summer of 2003, tens of thousands of people died in a sizzling summer heat wave. And weather experts were predicting more of that in the future as heat waves continued to consume the European continent. Los Angeles is one of the largest cities in the world, with a population consistently on the rise. With around 3.8 million residents in the region, Angelenos have a constant need for power. Currently, there is one company supplying all of the energy to the people of Los Angeles. With traditional power sources becoming depleted and increasingly expensive, the LA Department of Water and Power feels steps need to be taken to find alternative sources of energy. A program currently running in Los Angeles consists of a variety of traditional forms of energy. These sources are commonly used in all major cities and rural areas around the globe. Under this new plan, Angelenos can look forward to cleaner air and less dependence on fossil fuels. However, the completion of the Renewable Power Sources program is still a long way off. By using power wisely coupled with the advancing program, Los Angeles can set a trend for other cities or countries. One day soon, we may be able to live in an energy-efficient and cleaner world. The Isle of Wight, just off Britain's south coast, is a favourite holiday spot. Nearly 3 million people visit the island every year. Some are drawn by the action-packed week of world-class yacht racing at Cowes. For others, it's the traditional attractions of the British seaside holiday. The island, only 12 miles north to south and 23 across, is renowned for its sunny climate. At Ventnor, a small town nestling at the southern end of the island, an unusual botanical garden is proving popular with visitors. A quirk of the local climate allows semi-tropical plants to thrive here. The gardens, laid out on the site of a disused hospital, are an important part of the local economy. Visitors have been able to do a lot more than look around the gardens lately. A visitor centre including a library, study centre and both permanent and temporary exhibitions is opened, and a pleasant place to sit out of the occasional rain. The permanent exhibition describes the history of plant life and its impact on our lives. With its mix of public education, study facilities and its range of plants from distinctly un-British climes, the Botanic Gardens are like a mini version of Kew, the world-famous Botanic Gardens in West London. The gardens include areas of plants from New Zealand, the Americas and the Mediterranean, and themed areas like medicinal and culinary borders. And with their own microclimate, the gardens can stay open to visitors throughout the year. This is a fruit tattoo. Everybody knows the problem. Those little labels are hard to remove without parts becoming stuck under your fingernail. But there is a solution. Instead of pasting a label onto the fruit industry in the United States is starting to use lasers to tattoo fruit instead. Here's a tomato on the production line, and when these pictures are slowed down, you can see how it's tattooed. The perforations that make the tattoo are tiny, almost too small to measure them. A few years ago, Durand Wayland, a fruit grower and distributor in Georgia, bought the patent for a process that etches information the retailer or customer wants directly into the skin of the fruit. Drillard said the process removes only the outer pigment to reveal a contrasting layer underneath and make the tattoo readable, even scannable. The tattoos have a code number which the cash register automatically identifies and prices the fruit, reducing time at the checkout. The patent holders say one of the aims of tattooed fruit is to keep track of it, whether for profit or security reasons. Other tracking methods being tested include miniaturized barcoding, and in Japan, scannable barcoding etched into the wax of apples. Many people think organic farms are better for the environment. Until now, there has been little firm science to back that claim up. 3 groups of UK wildlife experts have spent the last few years looking at bird, insect and plant species on 180 farms, half organic and half conventional. They discovered that for most of these groups of species, the numbers of species and also their abundances were higher on organic farms. The most striking results were for plants. 85% more species on average on the organic farms. Figures for insects, birds and bats were also higher on the organic farms, which tend to have thicker hedges where wildlife can live. Organic farms do not use damaging pesticides and herbicides. But the researchers think a lot can be done to make conventional farming more friendly to wildlife and traditional wildflowers. So with only 3% of British farms fully organic, there is plenty ordinary farmers can do to protect Britain's rich biodiversity. The Cotswolds in the west of England is famed for its picture postcard landscapes. But a small area of just 15 acres at Colesbourne Park belonging to the Earls family is fast earning renown through Europe as one of the largest and most diverse sites for the humble snowdrop. These delicate-looking bulbs are in fact deceptively hardy, pushing up through the bitterest frosts and snow. As the first flower to make an appearance after the bleak English winter, the snowdrop is much loved and anticipated as the first sign of spring. Carolyn Earls has continued the work of her great-grandfather-in-law, Henry John Earls, an avid naturalist and collector who discovered that unusual snowdrop in 1874. The interest is now almost a mania, and Carolyn has collected 130 different types of snowdrop here. The undisturbed woodlands are a perfect breeding ground for these promiscuous plants which propagate in vast drifts. Skarloki, discovered high in Russia's mountains by a German, Dr. Scharlock, is distinguishable by its petals arranged like donkey's ears. The sideways hang, an unusual inner arrangement of blueberry tart, named for the Oxfordshire town where it was found, makes it something of a freak in the snowdrop world. The temperamental Lady Elphinstone has a real surprise inside. But if she's moved, her yellow centre doesn't appear for another 2 seasons. Carolyn's favourite snowdrop is also a target for the early spring bees. Snowdrop mania has meant the rare varieties are becoming targets for thieves, but Carolyn says most enthusiasts are genuine. She's welcomed visitors from across Europe who come to fete this little white flower, which briefly heralds the spring, but which barely survives a fortnight. Known as the Green Oscars, hopefuls from 30 countries across the world gathered in the Japanese city of Hamamatsu to take part in the world's top environmental competition. On this occasion, it was the small English town of Bury St Edmunds in Suffolk which walked away with the prize for the best small town. They said the best thing about the contest was learning just how much more they could achieve. The award for the best environmentally sensitive practices, including reducing household waste and cutting car traffic, went to the large London city borough of Wandsworth. The host city of Hamamatsu had won the event the previous year. During the Second World War, it was devastated by American bombing, and only 3 of its local platanus trees were left standing. But these were revived by residents and became a symbol of their determination to rebuild their city. The judges look for evidence of saving precious heritage, restricting chemical pollution, inventive recycling schemes, and a commitment to the environment at grassroots level. Conservation has come a long way in the last 25 to 30 years. From being seen as just a fringe concern, how to prevent economic activity from destroying the world's wildlife and natural habitat is now acknowledged as one of the major questions facing mankind. Cambridge University has been the breeding ground for many naturalists, not least of all the father of evolution, Charles Darwin. In the shadow of one of the very species Darwin collected, the university announced its newest professorship in the conservation of nature. The naturalist and broadcaster Sir David Attenborough said the chair at the university would form a focus of expertise for the increasing number of organisations involved in the diverse field of nature conservation. Modern poaching, hunting and the destruction of natural habitats are driving increasing numbers of species into extinction, something that preoccupies the public and academia much more than in the past. Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh, whose name the new chair in conservation bears, is president of the Worldwide Fund for Nature and a keen supporter of conservation projects to protect natural habitats around the world. In Cambridge's Zoological Museum are reminders that species extinction is not unique to our century. The dodo was driven to extinction when Europeans came to Mauritius in the 17th century. Cambridge University is involved in programs to protect bird and animal populations in fragile island environments. The higher profile being given to conservation at Cambridge shows that though the threat of extinction is greater today, the awareness of the need to act is even greater. "6 feet under, but coloured and ecological." In the discreet street of Brussels, the first Belgian shop is selling ecological coffins. Catherine Delade, Gerald Bakinks and Pierre Silvestre, very sensitive to the protection of the planet, have decided to change mentalities and broken taboos concerning death with an ecological coffin entirely made out of recycled material, and have offered it as a safe and beautiful alternative to conventional coffins. Cellulose fibres combined with earth minerals are used to make these coffins, which means a coffin weighing only 14 kilos can carry up to 115 kilos. To give life to their project, the company, Artius Europa, decided to work with an English family firm able to produce this kind of coffin. For the moment, the ecological coffin only exists in 5 different colours: blue, red, green, white and gold. The most expensive taking 2 days to overlay with gold. According to Pierre Silvestre, one of the company's collaborators, people are afraid of death. With this new concept of coffins, he hopes to give more transparency and less suffering to people. For a majority of traditional undertakers, it will still be too expensive. According to Jean-Jacques Poncelet, the owner of a funeral company, only the rich and less conventional people would pay for an eco-coffin. But Jean-Jacques thinks it's a good and original idea. It's the longest waterway in the world, but more than 90% of the Nile's natural water flow is used by irrigation and lost through evaporation. What reaches the Mediterranean is heavily polluted by irrigation drainage, industrial waste, and city refuge. This is just one example of a river in crisis. According to World Water Vision's Commission for Water for the 21st Century, more than half the world's major rivers were seriously depleted and polluted. The Commission said there were 25 million environmental refugees as a result of water pollution. The numbers for the first time exceeded those of war-related refugees. The Commission was set up in 1998, and it's been working with countries around the world to raise awareness. Waterways considered to be the most stressed include the Yellow River in China. Important agricultural reaches of the river ran dry for much of 1997, and it's extremely polluted. The Volga River basin in Russia is also in crisis condition. In a region supporting 61 million people, just 3% of surface water is considered environmentally safe for drinking. The accumulation of toxic waste is also causing huge health problems. And Britain's rivers have also been put under the microscope. The Commission says the Thames is still polluted, but it is improving. The World Commission on Water says if river problems around the world are not addressed soon, the problem will be further aggravated by having to meet the needs of food, drinking water, and water for economic development of the additional 2 billion people living on Earth by 2025.